Hey folks, Crimson Blaze here. Welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to address a question that I get from time to time, and that is, what would I do if I were not able to find a set of trees to hang a hammock on one of my backpacking trips? This is something that I have definitely given some thought to, so let's get into it. First, let me say that in all of my years of backpacking, this has never happened. Not once have I not been able to find a set of trees to hang a hammock on one of my hammock camping trips. And it really all comes down to one thing, and that's planning. Yes, planning. Now, I know some of you may be out there rolling your eyes thinking, well, I'm not a planner. I don't like planning backpacking trips. Or maybe you're one of those spontaneous types and you just want to go wherever the trail takes you that day. Or maybe you just think it's tedious and boring or time consuming and you just don't want to do it. But I do think planning is important when you go hammock camping, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where at the end of a long day of hiking, you find yourself in a place where there are no trees to hang a hammock. Well, there are two things that I do to help ensure that this doesn't happen. First, I look at YouTube videos. I love YouTube backpacking videos. I know most people prefer gear videos, and I do like a good gear video, but I love backpacking videos on YouTube. I like getting ideas of where people are hiking and just seeing what the trail is like. So when I figure out the trail that I want to do, I'll look it up on YouTube and I'll see what the area looks like, and I'll see where people are camping and are there trees in that area, or I'll just kind of notice where they're hiking through different patches. If maybe there's barren areas where there are no trees, or there are plentiful trees, or they go above tree line, and I'll kind of take mental notes of where there are trees and whether or not this area is good for hammock camping, or whether or not I need to bring a tent. So that's the first thing that I do. I look at YouTube backpacking videos. The second thing that I look at is a hiking app. The one I primarily use for planning is the Onyx Backcountry. And I love it because it has a 3D version view of satellite images and kind of shows you the contours of the trail and the area that you're going to hike. And that's really helpful for me because I plan out every single day how many miles that I'm going to hike and where I'm going to camp that night. So when I'm using my hiking app, I can see where those miles end up on the trail and if there are trees there or not. Maybe I need to hike a little further, or maybe I need to stop a little sooner. But that Onyx Backcountry hiking app really lets me kind of dial in how many miles I need to hike each day on my backpacking trip to ensure that I'm going to be in an area where there are trees for hammock camping. Enough yapping, let's get to it. So what I have brought with me in my backpack is all the gear that I would normally take with me on a hammock camping trip. And the first thing that I'm going to do, which is what any person with a tent is going to do, is look for a nice, level, flat area that they can. And if you can have a view, even better. So that's obviously the first thing that I am going to look for. The next thing that I need is, I know that I'm going to need a couple of good size rocks or stakes. And I'm going to need this to secure down my tarp over the area where I want to sleep that night. On most of my trips, I'll only bring 4 stakes to stake down my tarp, but I'm going to need 2 more rocks or stakes that I can find, or sticks, in order to help secure down my trekking poles, which are going to be needed to help keep up the tarp above my sleeping area. My recommendation is to look for some good size rocks. With sticks, sticks will work, but my assumption is that if you're in an area where there are no trees, you're probably, one, not going to be able to find many sticks that are going to help you out that you can make into a stake. And two, once you find a good sturdy stick, now you got to take out your knife and you got to whittle it down and you need to make a sharp point at the end so it will stick into the ground. So there's just a lot of work involved in finding good sticks to stake down your tarp. So I recommend finding a couple of good rocks, and I found some here that I think are going to work out perfect. They have enough good weight on them to hold down my tarp, and I think they're going to work out just fine. Now that I have my two rocks, let's go pull out my gear and get this thing set up. And I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but technically I have never done this before. I've only done it theoretically in my mind on how this should work out. So this could be interesting. Well, as you can see, it's not the best pitch. It's not a good pitch. It needs a lot more work. But I think I have at least the foundation for sending it upright. I think if I just move some of my stakes out, that'll be fine. Maybe lower my trekking pole down a little bit. But you can see, even in the wind, it's holding. It's just not a very good pitch. So let me work on repitching this and making it a little bit tighter, and then I can kind of walk through the space, the gear that I have, and kind of my thought process for how I'm going to use the gear to sleep through the night. Here is my new pitch, and it's pretty good, I think, especially compared to the last one. What I had to do was kind of reinforce my rocks. What I was finding was that this rock kept on sliding in when the wind picks up, and I was losing all the tension on my shelter. So I like having the trekking pole kind of lean away from the shelter to help create some of that tension. As for the stakes, I just spread them out a little more to make it a little more taut there on the sides. And over here you can see I have another big heavy rock to help create the tension for this shelter. And it's definitely not perfect, as you will see maybe if the wind starts picking up, because it's been windy this afternoon. It's a little iffy, but this is last resort, right? Well, I'm not planning on using this as my shelter. This is a last resort if I'm not able to find trees. And let's be honest, I'm probably not going to get a good night's sleep if this has to happen. I'm sleeping on the ground. I don't have a pad. I'm just trying to stay dry if I can. And you know what? If it looks like that it's not going to rain, I'm not even going to pitch the tarp. I'm not even going to have a shelter above me. I'm just going to cowboy camp on the ground with the gear that I have. But if it looks like it is going to rain, or if I am trying to get out of the wind, then I am going to pitch it like this. And this is the gear I typically bring. I always bring a tarp with me. Even if I think it's not going to rain, it's like a rain jacket to me. I'm going to always bring a tarp because I like having some type of shelter with me on my trips. And I'll always bring 4 stakes to stake it down with me as well. I don't have 6, so that's where I have to pull in the rocks and the trekking poles. I'll generally bring in 2 trekking poles with me. I like hiking with one, And then when I get to camp, I like setting up my tarp in porch mode at some time. So I typically do, for the most part, bring 2 trekking poles with me. So this is what my shelter is going to look like if I have to pitch it in case I can't find any trees. So this is what it's like underneath the shelter. Now let me walk through some of the how I use some of the gear for sleeping at night. As you can see, I have my hammock and I have my underquilt. This is the one that's zipped on. The jacks are better. So I have my underquilt laying down the ground and I have my hammock. And this is what I'm going to lay on for comfort and maybe for a little bit of warmth. Now I know that I will be crushing the down of this underquilt, so it's not going to keep me that warm. But my hope is that the baffles here on the side, I can kind of curl up and keep a little bit warm during the night. So this is what I will be laying on. But what is underneath this is the 1/8 inch foam pad that I carry with me now on most of my trips. Because this can be multi-purpose. I can roll it up to be like a butt pad, but I can also lay on it like if I'm just trying to rest on the trail during the day. So for this, what I would do is, this is 1/8 inch foam is going to be my protection from the ground, a little bit of insulation, and a little bit of cushion is what I would do. So I would lay this down and then lay my underquilt and then hammock on top of that. And then of course I'd have my top quilt on top of this to keep me warm. I'm also going to have my pillow. So I'll keep my pillow above my my foam pad, so that'll give me insulation and warmth for my neck to my head. So I'll continue to sleep on that. But there's another thing I'm going to show you, because this foam pad only goes down to maybe, my lower back from the top of my shoulders, maybe a little bit down below my lower back. And so I got my feet that I need to think about. So what I have, let me show you here, is my backpack. And I have my backpack here because I'm going to put my legs on top of that. It's going to elevate my feet a little bit and hopefully provide a little bit of insulation to keep my legs and my feet warm. And normally I do carry an extra pair of socks, or sometimes those down booties. I'll put those on to keep my feet warm at night. That'll give me insulation. My foam pad will come up to where the backpack is, and then I'll put my legs on top of that and sleep through the night. And that's it. I'll lay that out. I'll lay that down, and this will be for my shelter. So if I wasn't expecting any weather, then I would just straight out cowboy camp, look at the stars. I'm still going to be a little bit cold underneath, but you do what you got to do sometimes, and just make it through the night. And then hopefully your next night you will have a set of trees for hammock camping. Well, that's going to do it for this video, and hopefully you will never find yourself in this situation, because it was a bit tricky. And there's a bit of mild wind that was occurring as I was trying to set it up. And it was a bit tricky trying to get a tight pitch on my tarp. And the reason is because I only bring 4 stakes, because I only need 4 stakes typically when I'm going hammock camping to pitch down my tarp. I don't have anything to tighten up my trekking poles. And that was the hard part, is getting the rocks just right and getting the trekking poles leaning in the correct manner to create that tension that keeps my tarp tight, so it's not caving in on me when I'm sleeping at night. And it's not the best. I know that it's not the best, but this is in case of emergency. Like I've said, this has never happened to me before in all my years of backpacking. I have never been in a situation where I couldn't find a pair of trees for hammock camping. And that's why I do recommend do a little bit of planning. Just see if there's trees in your area. Do some satellite images on your hiking app or Google Earth or something, and see if there are trees in the area where you're wanting to backpack. And if there aren't, then bring your tent. But if there are, then you can kind of plan accordingly of where you can camp along your backpacking trip to make sure that there are trees available, because this is going to be a miserable night's sleep. I do have a little bit of protection from the ground, a little bit of insulation, but if it's really cold, I am going to be cold for that night. But I wanted to at least walk through and physically set up what I would do if that case did arise, so I can be prepared if it were to happen. Because maybe, I do plan where I'm going to camp that night, but maybe I have to stop earlier and there aren't trees there because maybe there's a bad storm or there's a hailstorm and I'm just trying to get out of it. So it is good to kind of think through what you would do, how you would use your gear, and try it out. Try out setting it up and how it would all work for your trip that night. But again, hopefully you won't have this problem because you're going to be a master planner. You're going to figure out where all the trees are at, and this situation has never happened to you either.